Good afternoon, friends. I hope we're doing well. I thought I'd do a live today on tips on getting guests during local lockdown for your serviced accommodation business. It kind of feels like Groundhog Day, to be honest. I remember doing some videos similar to this earlier in the year for rather obvious reasons, and pretty much, depending on where you are in the country, there's probably an increasingly high chance now that where you are is under local lockdown or areas nearby you are. Now, in my personal instance, I'm based in Newport, South Wales, which is where I run my serviced accommodation business from, but actually we manage units in Bristol, Bath, Cardiff, and a few other areas as well. Yeah, basically we have to deal with sort of different geographical COVID-19 related restrictions. But specifically for Newport, which is where a lot of our stuff is and where we sort of work out of primarily, um, we are currently in local lockdown and will be for the foreseeable future. Now, clearly, lockdown is not entirely a positive thing, if we're being perfectly honest, for serviced accommodation, especially compared to last month, where we had a significant sort of uptick in hospitality bookings. Clearly, with local lockdown being called, we've noticed a significant downturn in bookings pretty much across the board. Some areas are doing better than others, and we can sort of, because we've got a bit of a geographical spread, we can compare. But broadly speaking, yeah, bookings have been impacted. There's sort of no way, shape, or form where we sort of talk around that. That's basically sort of where we are. So similar to last time, or last go around this particular position, there's quite a few things that we have started more actively doing to really try and hustle for bookings, because relying on the online travel agencies such as Airbnb, Booking.com, HomeAway, Agoda, Trivago, etc., is not something that's sort of going to be as relevant, because most of these platforms primarily get you, well, not to say primarily, but quite often you get hospitality bookings. So thinking outside the box is a strategy that you need to use, in my opinion, if you're facing a shortage of guests now. So basically, get your properties filled. You're probably going to have to sort of accept the fact that you're going to maybe have to look at reducing rates at the end of the day. If you're in a particularly competitive service accommodation area, dropping the price is going to make it easier to get people in your properties. And so yeah, if you've got a relatively decent profit margin, I would consider firstly dropping your available rates on the platforms, just to give you a better chance of sort of getting sort of bookings from those platforms anyway. But really, you need to have a decent direct marketing sort of strategy in place. And I mean, to be honest, I would advise that you do this pretty much due course anyway for your business. But obviously, you need to go for a more enhanced level now. So kind of things that we've increasingly done just to sort of start getting ourselves out there a bit more. First one is listing our properties on Facebook Marketplace. Now, this is a bit of a double-edged sword in some regards. We've actually had some good we actually had a couple of bookings by listing a lot of our properties on Facebook Marketplace. We specifically state that they're short lets, and we try and make it pretty obvious who and what they are. The reality is we have been getting a lot of messages from people that are looking for single lets, which is fine. Obviously, that's not something we're able to provide. I mean, they're more than welcome to sort of rent the place for a long period, but clearly the rates aren't going to be single let rates. However, in and amongst all these messages, we have actually had a couple of bookings from people that sort of understand what's on offer. Facebook is such a big platform in terms of visibility that actually it's while it's probably not something we normally do, we have had some pretty good results from it, and it's something we will continue to do now. By the way, guys, if you are watching, please feel free to comment sort of questions, etc. throughout the live. I'll go sort of as long as people ask questions, or as long as I kind of have steam for talking. So yeah, feel free to jump in, and I'll happily answer any questions you may have. But yeah, so Facebook's one that we've done, pretty useful. So what I would suggest is Facebook Marketplace, Facebook groups local to your area. So you've got kind of like the buy and sell groups, quite popular. Of course, check the terms and conditions, because some of them don't like you doing this kind of stuff. But if you've got groups where you can start posting stuff, advertising your units, it's another way to do it. It doesn't cost any money, so that could be particularly useful. So yeah, that's Facebook covered off. Gumtree is another one that we're doing again. So similar thing, you can post properties for rent on Gumtree. We've had some success with that in the past. I don't think we've had any bookings since we started doing it in the last couple of days, but I imagine it will come. But previously we got some quite good bookings actually out of Gumtree. So going under properties for rent and putting our properties there, we actually paid, don't know the exact fee, but I want to say £2 or £3, so relatively little, just to have a sponsored ad on some of our listings on Gumtree. So we're kind of up the top. So that's something that you can consider as well. What else? So, there's a couple of lot of free, almost free or very cheap online marketing things you can do. Next thing I would definitely suggest is you get in contact with your local council. If you have, again, you should be doing this as a matter of due course, in my opinion. But contact your local council, ask to speak to the emergency housing department or any sort of equivalent through the phone exchange, or just ask more generally to speak to anyone who deals with accommodation in the council. And you'll be surprised. Obviously, the council has a big budget; they've got lots of departments, and especially the emergency housing department are going to have a constant need. Now, it might not be something that, depending on the nature of your business, you would normally consider, but the reality is you kind of want bums on beds for the next couple of months, depending on how sort of virulent your local lockdown is. And so it's worth considering all things at the end of the day, and doing what your sort of competitors aren't doing, just to sort of keep that occupancy up and hopefully get good rates. And we work with the council, or we started working with the council in March this year. We still are, and yeah, there's been sort of generated some quite good revenue, and also that put us in a position where we've been able to help some people in need. So that's been really useful thing for us. What else? So we've recently been informed about a website called Response Accommodation. I assume if you Google Response Accommodation, you'll actually get a website for that, who specialise in listings of service accommodation for key workers. So we've listed on that, not any results yet, but looks like quite a prolific website. So I recommend you go on there. Making contact with local sort of NHS, but also private hospitals, clinics, etc. Thinking facilities. Obviously, let's be honest, pandemic. Accommodation is going to be required, or people, in relation to accommodation. So getting in touch with these places, we've generated loads of business during the last lockdown from contacts through the local hospitals, both sort of public hospitals and private. So definitely something I would massively advocate. And the benefit of getting in contact with hospitals is quite often they will actually, well, from our experience, and this may not be yours, but if you ring up your local hospitals and go for the phone line and actually ask to get through to the accommodation department, they do normally actually have somebody, in our experience, that has that role. So it's actually a lot instead of like sort of cold calling a business who they might not really have a person whose job that is. Hospitals tend to be large enough that they might actually have someone they can put you through to. So that's quite a good one. What else have we got? So you've got some maybe more entrepreneurial direct marketing opportunities. So this is more kind of like one. I don't know, it's entirely up to you, sort of, if you choose to use this or not, because it kind of is a little bit of a moral, ethical stance to it. Equally, some would say it's just being entrepreneurial, but the old going around car parks of local hotels, kind of later at night, not too late, but later at night when the sort of car parks have emptied out a little bit, and taking photos of the sides of vans and stuff, i.e. the sort of ones that are all got the livery on, contact details, etc. End of the day, it's those are people in your area that are paying hotel rates, and they could well be staying in your properties that may well be cheaper and nicer. So if you want to be a little bit entrepreneurial, you can kind of go down that route there, and potentially that will generate you some sort of pretty good stuff. And it's obviously going to be people operating in, well, people that are going to need accommodation in and around where you are. So that's one. Probably the one I'll finish off on with regards to this is using the promotions that are available. So depending on the platform, as we're talking about, Booking.com, for example, has a lot of promotion options. You can sort of do things such as 4 nights, book 4 nights, get one free. The honest answer is they have lots of different promotion types all the time. So if you've got a Booking.com account, you won't be able to do this from your channel manager if you use one. But if you go into the extranet and you go to the promotions tab, you'll see that they have lots of promotions in there. So that's something worth considering, just to see what promotions they've got on, and if you, basically if it's pertinent to what you're doing, and if you think that it'll make sort of may interest customers. Or we used a few promotions last lockdown, and they were quite useful. So that's something you can consider. We talked about pricing already. You can obviously make sure you just go through your listings and make sure they're sort of up to scratch. And you sort of, if you're doing enhanced cleaning measures and stuff, just make sure that, especially on your direct booking website, that you're sort of talking about that. There was something else I was going to mention off the top of my head. It's completely gone from me. I won't bore you by sort of sitting on live just trying to think about it. But yeah, in short, guys, hustle. I've definitely not suggested every single thing that you can do here to try and sort of get more bums on beds, as it were. But if you've got a sort of empty looking calendar coming up, you should be sort of on the phone, ringing around, thinking about what opportunities you've got in your local area to generate demand. People will still be moving around. The lockdown measures, arguably this time around, are nowhere near as sort of strict as previous, depending on your area. There's definitely a lot more emphasis this time on if you can't work from home, going to work. So there are still a lot of important jobs where people can't physically do them from home. A lot in terms of contractors and sort of builders, mechanical engineers, telecommunications infrastructure, you name it, all these really vital services, and they still need somewhere to stay, and they are staying somewhere. So you just want to do your utmost to make sure that that somewhere is your property. So yeah, best of luck with it, basically, guys. It's from my perspective, I think it's not hopefully going to be quite as long or severe a lockdown as previous. But then again, who knows? That's just a humble assessment on my part based on my very minor view of what's going to happen. And I think on that basis, once we get through this lockdown, or this local lockdown where we are, we're going to see probably another little spike in terms of hospitality bookings. We're going to have like a staycation round 2, which is why we literally does feel like Groundhog Day a little bit at the moment. So we kind of we've got that hopefully to look forward to. But in the meantime, now's the time to take action. Now's the time to basically sort of really hustle if you haven't been already, and think about all the things you can do just to really get your units filled. Maybe not make the same kind of money per person you were looking at, but really kind of going down to kind of breaking even. Now, from our perspective, we manage a lot of units for our investors. So we don't just have our own rent-to-rents, we have a lot of units we manage for investors, and obviously we have an obligation to them, which I kind of feel quite keenly on a daily basis, to be honest, especially when we sort of see things now where there is a bit of a dip in bookings, because clearly they've got bills to pay, and they're entrusting us with their properties to manage. So yeah, really, we're hustling not just for ourselves, but clearly for them as well, because we want to do the best by them. If that means we have to make them a bit less income, but hopefully we get them to break even, that's kind of where we're at. So yeah, pushing for those long direct bookings by hustling and talking to businesses, and looking for local opportunities is the way ahead, in my opinion. So yeah, I hope that was kind of useful, guys. As I said, if you've got any questions, comments, queries, etc. throughout the day, if you're watching this sort of after the matter of the fact, please feel free to drop them down the side, and I will happily sort of get back to you on that. But regardless, good luck if you're looking to fill your SA units. Good luck with it, and I hope you all have a great day. Cheers, guys. Bye bye.